And welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Maxym Yali. He's a professor for National Aviation University of Ukraine. Maxym, it's really a pleasure to have you on today.
Me too, Errol. Haven't seen you for ages.
Yeah, yeah, it had been a while, but we have to get back in touch on a more regular basis and cover what's going on in Ukraine, because I think we need to do that now more than ever. I want to ask you this question. A lot of things has changed over the past week, so to speak. We know Joe Biden took a solid stand for Ukraine in terms of giving the monetary support and the continuous support. He really went out on a limb to get things done, get things passed through Congress and so forth, to assist Ukraine. And now he was somewhat forced out to retire, to leave his position, since he didn't perform well in the last debate. And Donald Trump, who happens to be a good buddy of Putin, somehow got a lot of praises for how he did perform, considering that this is a guy who is noted to be a felon right now at this point, waiting sentencing on September 16th, I think it was, speaking to subject correction. He is doing pretty well in the polls. The reality is that his support will always maintain itself. They will always be loyal to him. But he had one idea that when he became president, from day one, he would adopt the strategy of a dictator. And if you have him doing that, which I wouldn't put it past him, he would be on the same line as Vladimir Putin. He'd be on the same line as Kim Jong or Illard, rather, I think that's his name, from North Korea, and also Xi from China, the president of China. He would be on the same level as those other dictators. America stand on democracy. We was established on democracy, but things change over the years, and things change drastically over this past week. How would it really, my question is to you, how would it really impact Ukraine not to have the support or struggling support of the United States should either one or the two get into power in November? Because the reality is Kamala Harris, she is not a seasoned foreign affairs person. She's more known to be along the legal platform of life. This would be something new. How would it affect Zelensky in terms of not having continuous and pledged support or committed support should Donald Trump get in? How would that impact this war?
Well, that depends, and depends on the plan. As you know, just a few days ago, a new so-called Trump's plan appeared on Wall Street Journal. Ex-head of Department of State Mike Pompeo proposed it, and actually not the worst variant, because the problem is that yes, during presidency of Biden, United States keep helping Ukraine, given military and financial supply, but unfortunately Biden's administration for these almost 2.5 years of full-scale invasion didn't make up a strategy of victory of Ukraine. So they gave us, United States and Biden's administration, enough weapons to stand, not to allow Russian troops to occupy the whole of Ukraine. But unfortunately, it's not enough for the victory and even to set free the rest of the territory of occupied territories. Besides the decisions made by Biden's administration, well, let's put it this way, we're in a delay with the situation on the front line. Just the recent example, just when Russians started offensive operations in Kharkiv region this year, which on the territories which we deoccupied in 2022 in autumn. So because they could have done it just because Biden's administration forbade us to make strikes on the territory of Russia. So we could see the preparation of this offensive operation, but we couldn't prevent it. And only after that, Biden administration allowed us to use ATACMS, but again, only 100 kilometers away, and the depth of the territory of Russia, just to prevent further such offensive operation, because the situation is changing very rapidly. And unfortunately, if in 2022 Ukrainian troops had more just troops, soldiers prepared, one which allowed us to deoccupy Kharkiv region and Kherson. After that defeats, Putin proclaimed mobilization, and now they have superiority. So we can, besides they built up defense lines in 2022, which led not to successful our offensive, counter-offensive operations last summer. So the superiority now is on the Russian side. Besides, this year they started used cruising bombs, huge bombs, 3 tons already they're using. So they're launching it from the territory of Russia, knowing that we cannot get them there, and because of that, for forbidden decisions. So therefore, for example, I suppose the situation will be like this. Actually, it's not the first time. We know already the war is going on since 2014, actually. That time when Trump became president in 2016, we also were waiting that he would make a deal with Putin, and he would make a pressure on Ukraine. But he didn't, actually. And moreover, he gave us javelins. And, there was a restriction to give lethal weapons from Obama's administration since 2014. So after he failed to negotiate with Putin, his representative, he gave us lethal weapons. So I suppose there will be again such a scenario. So as he mentioned many times, so he will call to Putin and say, if you don't agree for negotiations, I'll give Ukraine everything they need for the victory. And actually this plan I mentioned, Pompeo's, yes, describes what's gonna happen if Putin denies to start peaceful negotiations. I would like to mention to you and to your audience that Putin wants more territories. He wants Zaporizhia and Kherson region. Zaporizhia and Kherson administrative centers, the biggest cities in that 2 regions, we control, and there were no Russian troops in Zaporizhia. So they left Kherson, as I have mentioned, in 2022. So now he wants, as a condition, for us to give it. So actually, military experts say that he will need 5 years to achieve their goals. If the situation, I mean, just the structure, the weapons used, the same as it is now. We, with the help of the assistance we are getting, also cannot, unfortunately, change the situation because of the superiority of Russians. So, as I have mentioned, it's one variant. He calls to Putin, then he calls to Zelensky, and actually he showed what would happen if Zelensky does not agree for peace negotiations. We remember how Republicans blocked giving military assistance in the Congress in winter and spring. So it was a signal from Trump, because it was Trump's decision, to Zelensky. If you don't agree for my plan, when I come to power, I will freeze the assistance, and you will lose more territory, as I have mentioned, in Kharkiv. It was happening. Russians used that moment. But taking into account that ambitions, territorial ambitions of Putin, which I have mentioned, he wants 4 regions of Ukraine plus Crimea, and for us to agree that they are under control of Russia, of course, it's very difficult to imagine. Then, I suppose, quite possible, if Putin denies these conditions, then he will give us much more weapons, and all kinds of weapons we need, just as written in Pompeo's plan. I would like to mention that, unfortunately, we are lack of people. Now mobilization is going on. We are lack of weapons, and also we are lack of resources, economy, and it's a it's a war since 2023. Just it's a long-term war, and it's good for Putin and for Russia because they have more resources, they have more weapons, they have aviation, which we still lack, and we haven't received any F-16 fighter jets, though we have been promised many times still. So that's why, if, for example, Kamala Harris wins and the situation will not change, we shall lose more territories and more people. So that's, I see, the problem. So as I have mentioned there, to complete my answer, 2 options. So first one, as Trump proclaimed many times, he wants to stop this war before he comes to power, before January 22. So if both sides agree, then peace negotiations will start. It will take time as well, because both Ukraine wants to deoccupy all territories.
Right.
Putin wants to control more territories, to occupy more territories. Of course, these, conditions do not meet. But under pressure of the United States, I suppose these negotiations will fail, and then Plan B, I guess we can get much more weapons than we are having now, because this strategy, because Biden is afraid to cross so-called red lines, yes, and therefore, as I have mentioned, we don't get aviation. It's impossible to have successful operations. It's a NATO the military doctrine, and therefore, this situation for us is not good as well. So we are not afraid so much.
Right. Well, I want to answer this question.
Trump may come.
Sorry. I want to answer this question. Do you think the prolonging or the neglect of giving the kind of weaponry that Zelensky had requested from day one, that you could hit deep into Russia with, do you think that's the reason why this war is still prolonging this far? Or had you had access to those weapons, maybe the war could have been ended already?
This war could have been over if in 2022, when we in autumn 22, we had discussions with you that time. We had successes. We occupied about 50% of the territories Russia captured since the 24th of February. As I mentioned, Kharkiv region and Kherson, part of Kherson region. So if Biden gave us at that time and our European allies weapons they gave us later, we needed so much because there were no huge defense lines of Russian troops. So Biden, unfortunately, hesitating, gave Putin and his army time to prepare for our offensive operations. And without aviation, it's impossible to have successes. 20,000 square kilometers of minefields. Can you imagine? So we couldn't move. Aviation, the war has changed. There is a steep and you can see everything. Everybody can see everything everywhere because of the territory. That's how, because of the steeps, there are no forests there. So therefore, just when we started our offensive operations, Russian could see us. They called for helicopters, aviation, and they bombed us. And we couldn't hit them because we didn't have enough of aviation. We didn't have Patriots, which at that time, etc., etc. So if we received ammunition, weapons in November 22, just as Zelensky and Zelensky were asking, we were having successes, I suppose we could have deoccupied the territories. Since 2023, Russia was building these 5 lines of defense lines for half a year. It's a huge time. And they knew where we would start our offensive operations. So they prepared. So now, since 2023, the situation changed. Either we get enough of air defense system because it's now very good we have electricity. Usually, a week ago when you wrote me, yes, we were having 4 hours a day, for you to understand, 2 hours in the daytime, 2 hours in the evening. And there was plus 40 degrees Celsius heat. You can imagine. So that situation, because Russia is using their advantage with the missiles attacks, they are destroying our energy grid. And we are lack of defense, air defense systems. We are asking for it. So, but unfortunately, still haven't got. So therefore, I suppose the freeze of the conflict is not the worst variant under such conditions, which I mentioned, for Ukraine. And if we get the invitation to NATO, for example, to European Union, to prevent further war, because it's not the first war, it's already second war. The first began in 2014 when Donetsk and Lugansk were occupied. So now for us it's just like the most important, okay, which guarantees we can get from our allies, the United States, European partners, to prevent further war, the third already. So that's the point. And unfortunately, that agreement which was signed between US and Ukraine by Biden and Zelensky on NATO summit, well, you know, there are no guarantees for us. We already gave up in 1994 third nuclear potential in the world. After US and Russia, we had third nuclear potential. And we gave it up for security guarantees. But as you can see, Russia violated, of course, its first, because it was one of the signatures of them. But the United States, Great Britain also. They said when Putin occupied Crimea, Obama said, okay, we call for negotiations in Austria, That's it. But at the same time, he put a veto to give us lethal weapons, which provoked Putin to go on, and then war in Donbass began, which was frozen in 2015, and then Putin thought that Biden was too weak, he would not dare to help us, and he started full-scale invasion. It was his mistake, and it's good that Biden's strategy was much better than Obama's, but still, you know, if you if you dig deeper to the issue, you can see, you know, wrong decisions by both, which led to such crucial consequences.
I want to answer this final question quickly. Be it Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, and I'm not speaking much about Donald Trump for the mere fact that he's not too much a supporter of NATO nations or NATO. My question is to you, is there any advice or request you would like to make out to Kamala Harris or even the same Donald Trump at this point, should either one come into power?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, once again, there were problems.
Okay. Yeah, my question was, Donald Trump is not really a NATO supporter in that form. He's not too impressed by NATO. So my question is to you, should either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris comes into power, is there any request you would like to make when it comes to the issuing of weaponry to Ukraine's military?
Pardon, Errol, but again, after you said my question was, again, I lost some connection.
Okay.
Yeah,
so yes, my question was to you. Should either one, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, comes into power, which one, what request would you want to make in terms of the issuing of military equipment to Ukraine? What would you request urgently above them all to bring this war to a halt?
Okay. Yeah. Number one, F-16. Because without any aviation, there are no chance to deoccupy the whole territories and even to prevent the destruction of our energy grid. Children's Hospital, for example, 10 days ago, they attacked in the daytime, close to me, by the way, with missiles, children's hospitals. So air defense system, more Patriots to cover the biggest cities at least, and even not weapons, but to allow Ukraine to hit with already given weapons, ATACMS, long-range missiles, deeper to the territory of Russia on the military airports, their fighter jets, which, as I have mentioned, launch missiles and cruise bombs, attacking, destroying our defense lines from the territory of Russia. Because if this line at least 300 kilometers, then the situation will change. They will lose their superiority in the sky and their aviation. That's what we need, to control the sky and to attack them deeper, their fighter jets on the territory of Russia.
Okay, great. Well, look, Maxym, we have to meet the next 2 Saturdays again to continue this conversation. I want a little bit more knowledge. We have come to the end of our half hour. It flies by really quickly. But definitely I'm going to reach out to you that we can continue along this conversation, and we will do it more regularly as time go on. So until then, I want to say thank you, Maxym. We will keep in touch. And to all those who have been tuning in or living in the 21st century, have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Always welcome.
Sure.
Bye.
Take care, brother.